Thanks, Jonathan. These are balls that I guess I played with Hugo. He never lost any, so I'm sure these are the original ones. Hugo was my friend. He was my best friend. He was my best man. And I think Hugo had about 4,000 friends. I had 2. And I think Hugo had 150 pair of jeans. I've got this one. So in a lot of ways, we were different. I spent my career in corporate world. Hugo was his own person. And he was my hero. He was my friend. First time I met Hugo, it was a Parrot Head event. Carolina Beach, went back to about 2000, and I got a chance to hear him play, and I'd heard his CD before, and that was the first one, Places Along the Road. And when I first heard it, I was on the way out to the north end of Carolina Beach to do something called Beach Sweep, which was I'm not much of an environmentalist, I'll be honest with you. But anyway, that was part of our Parrot Head Club, so I was going along with it, and Emily was playing this CD, and I said, "Is that Buffett? It doesn't really sound like him." I knew it wasn't. And she said, "Jimmy could only wish he could write this well." And for a Parrot Head member, I thought that was a little sacrilegious at the time. But as it turned out, as I listened to it, I agreed with her. And with Emily, if those of you that know Emily, you don't mess around with her. She has a black belt. She does stunts in the movies, and she speaks her mind. And so I got a chance to talk to Hugo, found out he played golf, and he said to me, we ought to try to get together sometime to do that. And so we did, and we got out and we played a lot of golf, and it was very competitive. In some ways, golf is a little bit like songwriting, because some things just come to you, and sometimes you do things right and you don't even know why. And when it came to songwriting, Hugo did most everything right. Not so much in golf, but then again, I didn't do anything right in either category. So I had a lot of experiences with Hugo. One of the rules Hugo had was he didn't play weddings. He didn't play on his birthday, and he did both for me. For my daughter's wedding in Charleston, and the reception he played at was at the old Exchange building, which was one of the most historical buildings in Charleston. I think we spent a lot of time just going through that building and getting all the history and talking about it. And about this time, Hugo would remind me that the Gettysburg Address was 2 minutes and 29 seconds. So, but it was an experience because it was not only my daughter's wedding, and it was in Charleston in the historical district, but that night about 2 a.m., we were staying at a hotel that I pretty much rented out the whole place. It was the Vendu Hotel in the historical district of Charleston. And Hugo and I were in adjoining rooms. We were over in the old section that used to be a warehouse back before the Civil War. And it didn't have any windows in it. It was real old. And that's where I put Hugo because it was cheaper. And I was in the room next to him. And when I got back to the room after the reception and I came in the room, I felt there was a presence in the room I couldn't explain. And it was weird, like I could feel there was somebody there. So I looked around, and it was a very small room, and I thought, this got to be somebody playing a trick on me. And I looked under the bed, and I went in the bathroom, and I took the shower curtain and pushed it back and didn't ever see anyone. And then about 3 a.m., the TV comes on. And I don't know why, but it's loud, and it's not on a channel. So I put it on a channel, I turn it off. And about another half an hour, it comes on again, and it's really loud. And I turn it off. I go back to sleep, I put it back on a real channel, and then about 4 a.m., I hear Hugo over there say, "Who's messing with the TV?" And apparently it was happening in his room too. And that went on for a couple hours. And I had this feeling of some presence, and I heard some steps out in the hallway, and I thought, this has to be somebody in my son-in-law's family playing some kind of joke. But I couldn't figure out how they could do it because the door was locked. And anyway, all night long that went on. And in the morning, when we got to the reception, Hugo was already there, and he was complaining about this and saying, "You know, I need to get my money back." And I thought, wait a minute, Hugo, I was the one who paid for that. And the clerk said, "We don't normally rent out that part of the hotel because they should have told you it's haunted." And so there was this feeling, and it wasn't, this ghost wasn't a bad feeling. He was a jokester. And I felt impelled to write a song about this. So I did. I wrote this song called "The Ghost of the Old Vendu," and I wrote it out, and I did a chorus, and I showed it to Hugo, and he was totally unimpressed. Later, I had a friend of mine in Carolina Beach actually recorded it, so that was some consolation. But that was an experience that I'll never forget with Hugo. Later on, after I met Nancy, in 2006, I told Hugo that I was going to get married and marry Nancy, and he really liked her because Nancy's really a cool person and she's a great cook. And but he said to me, "Boy, that's a big risk." Of course, I thought he meant a big risk for me. He meant big risk for Nancy. So he was always careful. You know, and wanted me to be sure I was treating her right because he knew me better than just about anybody. So he knew all my bad faults. When you play golf with somebody, you really know their bad faults. And so anyway, it comes that I asked him to be my best man and go to Minneapolis. And there's one catch, Hugo. Nancy wants you to wear a tuxedo. I thought, that'll never happen. Well, guess what? He wore the tuxedo, and he did it for Nancy, not for me. And we played golf the day before the wedding, and the day after the wedding, and the day after the day after the wedding. So that was some consolation for it. After Hugo passed away, it was a month later. It was December 7th. It was early morning. It was pre-dawn. It was just starting to get light, and I had slept in the guest bedroom because Nancy had the flu, and I didn't want to catch it. And I looked up, and there, standing over the bed, in his hat, with his beard, was Hugo. And he looked at me and he said, "J.U., what are you doing here?" And I looked at, and I tried to focus, and he was gone. But he was my best man, and he was making sure that I was treating Nancy right. Hugo was a great songwriter, a great friend, and an even better person. Thank you.
Oh, All right, we're going to get the next person up here. Quick story.